Nubook 2, A Journey to Real Freedom, Part 12. There were 2 little beds in the room that had top covers, red and worn looking. Actually, the beds looked okay compared to the rest of the place. Mum put down the few things she had and went directly for the bed. I had slept so much of the time while she was driving that I wasn't at all tired. She, on the other hand, fell right to sleep. I sat on my bed for a moment and watched her doze off. Sleep to me was the greatest experience, but I had done my share for the day, and now it was time to move around. Little kids like me like to explore when their parents are not looking, and best of all, asleep. I began wondering in my little mind what to do, because I had been in the car all day doing nothing. There was no television in the room, and as I looked around, I could see everything was really used and ancient. There was absolutely nothing to play with. The place reminded me of a big closet. I didn't want to go to sleep yet, because it was early, and I knew that I could sleep in the car tomorrow for the entire day. Sleep all day, sleep all night. Life was good, but I wasn't tired yet. So, what do little boys do when there is nothing to do? They go out and explore. And that's just what I did. I looked over at Mum, as she was now sound asleep. So I softly got off the bed, crept over to the door, and slowly opened it. I was trying to be as quiet as possible, but the door creaked and moaned as I pulled it open. I quickly looked back at Mum to see if it woke her. Not at all, since she was actually snoring rather loudly. Okay, I thought, she should be fine. So I slowly went out the door. I decided to leave it open just a little bit, because I knew I would have to get back in later. It still looked like it was closed. That's all that mattered. Standing at the door and looking outside, I began to realize that it was really dark out. So dark at first that I could not see anything in front of me. Once in a while, a car would pass by on the road with a little light, but they were so fast I still couldn't see anything. For a moment I hesitated, wondering if I should explore at all. After pondering for a few moments, I decided that I would, because I didn't want to go back in the room and just watch Mum sleep. I slowly walked along the outside, touching the building wall as I went, feeling my way in the dark. I was taking my time so that my eyes would adjust to the night. Finally, when I could see a little, I noticed the moon was coming up. It wasn't a full moon, but it was shining just enough light to help me out. I was thinking to myself, maybe the big guy isn't so bad after all. I had a feeling that if he owned the earth, the moon must be his too. I walked around the side of the building toward the backside of the office. I wanted to stay near the building, just in case there was something I might stumble over in the dark. I slowly crept along, trying to listen for strange noises, but there was only silence. I imagined that a place that looked like this would have something odd or weird hanging around it, especially at night. I didn't seem to be afraid, because I wanted the experience of the adventure. I was more curious than concerned about what might happen. Besides, there was just the old man, and he could hardly move, so I felt fine about everything. This is fun, I thought. a little creepy, but it had the flavour of being daring. I finally came up to the window of the room. That was the back part of the office. There was light coming from the window, shining out into the evening's darkness. I slowly moved towards it as my attention was fixed on the light. Suddenly, I tripped on something in the dark and fell on my hands to the ground. I slowly pushed myself back up. My guess was that it was a shovel. It made a little noise, but nothing too loud. I stayed motionless for a few moments to see if anyone would come out of the building, but no one did. I listened very closely for any sounds, and there were none, so I figured I was still safe. As I slowly got up, I continued towards the window. I moved even slower, so as to not come across anything else. I was finally at the side of the window, and a little nervous about what to do next. The window was a little high for me, so I looked around for something to stand on. For some reason, I wanted to see into the window. I could faintly see some boxes and junk piled up in the back, so I gently moved one of the boxes under the window so that I could stand on it. I was very curious to see what was inside the room. My quest for adventure was beginning to heighten as my little heart began to patter. I was hoping to find some strange goings-on, so that in the future I would have a good story to tell my friends. I positioned the box right under the window, stood on it, and then slowly pulled my little body into a straightened position. The box was big enough so that it allowed me to get my head over the windowsill and see into the room. As I looked inside, I could see the old man with his back to the window, several feet away. He was sitting in a chair at his kitchen table and looking rather animated, actually more like a frozen specimen. He was slowly moving his arms slightly, as though he were explaining something to someone. I couldn't see his face, only the back of his head, nor who he was talking to. He continued with his body gestures, like he was carrying on a conversation with someone. The whole scene made me rather curious, and at the same time it was kind of spooky, with a bit of kooky humour. I started thinking that there must be someone really short in there, and I just couldn't see them. Then the old guy slowly got up from his chair. I mean very slowly, and then walked, actually more like dragged himself into the other room, and completely out of my sight. It took him a few minutes to do just that. I could see the other side of the table and the rest of the room, but there was no one there. Ha! I thought, he must have been waving away flies, or exercising his arms. I continued to slowly look around the room. The window was a little dirty, but I could see through it, and I still couldn't see anyone. The place seemed really dead. The whole scene I experienced seemed awfully weird, unless he was thinking about something and just talking to himself. Well, I figured that must be it, as I continued to look inside. Suddenly, his face popped up right in front of me, from inside the window, and he was staring right at me.